Welcome back to Bits and Boards. I'm Anthony Krolikowski, and today we have something new. We finally got a video game developer on. Now, he's not quite local to our capital region area, but you can certainly play the game in the capital region area when it comes out. So I think that is reason enough to have him on and talk about some fun that he's cooking up for us. So we introduce you to Roach. He is the game director of Roach Games. So first, sir, just thanks for doing this with us. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about where you're from and what got you into game development?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Roach from Roach Games. I'm an indie game developer and also a janitor of 13 years, working on our first commercial game called Kingdoms of the Dump, a video game about a fantasy world of living trash.
And when I heard that and saw that in your trailer previews that you're using your occupation and turning that into a game, I think that's just very interesting because when I have family members who were custodians, and not to say that you can't be creative or outspoken or whatever, just a
Yeah.
very extroverted person, but it's just nice to see such an artistic form being expressed here and the inspiration from your job. What made you want to create a game like this?
Well, it's funny, I've been creating games my whole life since I was a kid, board games, card games, personal games. I messed around with RPG Maker and when I was in middle school. So I was always interested in making games and creating worlds. Um, and they say write what you know. So I'm always looking for inspiration for my stories and ideas, and was working at that job. It's a good job, physical job, but you have a lot of time to let your mind wander. And we actually came up with it first as an idea for a children's book. This world, this the Kingdoms of the Dump story started as a children's book idea, while me and my co-writer is also a janitor. We're cooking up that as our, as a hobby. Maybe let's make a little children's book idea that we came up with. But as we started developing the idea, we became so enamored with it, it kind of grew beyond that, and that's when I tapped back into my love of making video games.
When I think about games that I played and what got me into tacticals was more of Fire Emblem and like Final Fantasy Tactics on the Game Boy. I was more from the DS era. That was my first game. So I
Mm-hmm.
might be a little bit younger than you, but those
Mm-hmm.
were some of the games that really stood out for me. What kind of led your inspiration down to this sort of gameplay with the tactical RPG route?
Oh yeah, so definitely Final Fantasy Tactics were an inspiration for us. Also Mario RPG, and yeah, basically all of the old turn-based RPGs from when I was a kid. We were obviously inspired by the Super Nintendo days. They kind of really formed the foundation for what we were trying to do. We didn't want it to be too tactical because some of those, as you'll know, some of those tactical RPG battles they can go really long. We wanted
You got to know
a
those mechanics sometimes. It gets a little too much when you got work and everything else going on in your life.
So we wanted to make it a little more brisk. Really, the idea for the game was something that you and a friend could beat in a weekend together. It is a solo game, but I always played these type of games with my friends. So a type of game that you could rent, beat it over a weekend, and really get into it.
And when it comes to this the story that you have, what are the characters that you have and the party members involved, and how that really fleshes it all out? Or I guess in this place, trashes it all out.
So our main hero is Dustin Binsley, the Trash Can Knight. He was the first character we created and kind of like got this whole thing going. You also play as a rat character who is a thief. You play as a librarian cowboy who's a floating jacket and a hat. You play as a laundromancer who is a wizard who controls the powers of the wash, a stink bug, and a little guitar character. So that's like your main party. It's kind of a ragtag group. And we kind of originally pitched it to when we were getting artists and stuff to join the team as Brave Little Toaster meets Lord of the Rings.
When it comes to the creative process here, how big is this team of yours as Roach Games? And obviously that's your player handle here, but how many people do you have working on it? And then, also talking about commissioning artists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How much hands went into this?
So it started with just me and my other janitor as the co-founders of Roach Games, but we knew we couldn't make the whole game ourselves. So we put together a little prototype to seek out some other people if they were interested in the concept, and that's how we found our lead pixel artist, DM404, who's an amazing artist. And slowly we built a team together. There's about five of us, a couple programmers, a couple artists, and then our contractors, musicians, and stuff like that. So it started small with just two janitors, and now we have a little team, and we're super proud of what we've been able to put together.
A whole cleaning crew, if you will.
Yeah,
Sorry for all of these puns, I guess. It just
this,
kind of.
yeah, we call ourselves the sanitation department.
And when it comes to this world, do you have? I'm thinking like a Mario games, right? Where you
Mhm.
have World One, Two, Three, Four, Five,
Yeah.
and I think if I read your Steam profile right, I think it was like 7.5. To kind of
Uh,
just give us those settings you have there.
yeah, it's the five and a half kingdoms of the dump. So you have Garbagia, the garbage land. You have Insectia, the land of the bugs. You have Detergios, the laundry land. Carpentos, the land of the carpentry men. You have Mamelon, the junkyard dogs and cats. And then you have the island of Book's End, which is like where the librarians live. And that's the half kingdom. They don't have a king. They have a council. I won't go into the details, but so those are
Spoilers,
the
right?
yeah, those are the five and a half kingdoms that you'll be going through in a pretty linear way until the end, where you get your airship and you can fly around to do your side quests and all that fun stuff.
What's been your favorite part of working on this? Has there been a certain character? I know obviously we have our protagonist here. Which one, character-wise, really speaks out for you? And then continuing on with that, is there a certain setting that you really enjoyed building up?
Well, I just really love building the entire world. Creating my own setting has always been something I've been interested in, and I've dabbled in since I was younger. But this is the most fleshed out thing we've done. We've worked on this for developing the setting for over 10 years now. We crowdfunded in 2019 to get funding for the game, but we were working on the concept for this world as far back as 2013.
When it comes to crowdfunding, because I'm familiar with Kickstarter a little bit, I know I don't think I've ever really went and put money towards a project other than if you're familiar with like Mega Man Pixel Tactics, I think I ended up
Yeah.
getting something for that. But I think of like Undertale
Mhm.
or something along, I think Mighty Number 9 might have been one
Yeah,
of those
that
as
was a
well.
big one.
But how does that all work? And just explain that for me and people who don't understand maybe the upfront costs and putting everything together and finally getting that finished product in your hands.
Yeah, crowdfunding is great because it gives a way for people to directly support the people making the thing itself, and create products that otherwise wouldn't be able to be made. So we knew that we couldn't fund this project ourselves. So that's what we went to Kickstarter to see if we could get people behind us, and we did. We raised $76,000 in 2019, which was super exciting. But as you can imagine, over 6 years of development, that only gets you so far. There's still a lot of people working nights and weekends. Obviously we had full-time jobs during this, but it still would not have been possible without those 2,000 backers who basically supported the game from right from the beginning. I updated them every month during the 6 years. That's a lot of updates. It was really fun keeping them involved, and some of them contributed characters and enemy designs as part of the Kickstarter as well. So you can donate early, and you understand that the game is going to take a certain amount of time to get made, and you'll eventually get your copy. But it's a way for them to be more plugged into the creation of some of these really unique art projects.
How did you manage your work-life balance? And obviously, you're doing a manual labor sort of a job, or
Yeah.
working actively with your hands and moving around, and then coming home and maybe
Mm-hmm.
being drained or tired. But this had to be, something that was fun and or kept you going. And how
Yes.
did it keep you going?
Yeah, this particular job I actually thought it was great for this because you have a lot of mental free energy while, hands on the broom doing the physical labor. I could have a lot of time to dream up a lot of fun ideas. And even just looking around the school I was working at for inspiration, we needed some more characters for the second act. And I'm in the break room and I look over, there's a water jug, a globe, and a big cardboard box. And these are three of our biggest characters. So if you can find inspiration anywhere, that keeps it fun. But it also just the type of work. My mind wasn't trained at the end of the day. Yes, I was tired, but thinking about all the stuff I wanted to do in the game, that's what kept me going.
That makes a lot of sense when I think of, myself with journalism and the passion that I have for it. Sometimes I'm just so
Hmm.
drained just mentally, but then I go home and I'm tired and I'm like, well, I'm not physically tired, but
Yep.
I guess if I just like lay down for a bit and then I'll play like the new Pokemon game that came out and
Right.
put a little too many hours into that. But obviously making a game is a lot different than playing a game.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah. But when we come back from our commercial break here, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, the battle system and the intricacies of it because I know you gave us a little preview of it, but it seems like there's a lot more underneath the surface that we can dig into.
Sure.
So, in a little bit, we'll be right back with that. And we are back. Now, Roach, I think I already made it kind of clear that tactical RPGs are something I really like. We talked about before we got on here that I had played Eichenfell or Eichenfell. I know there's a correct pronunciation on that, which is not in my mind right now. But that game, it was short and it hit the right notes with the battle system and the characters. So talk to me about some of the intricacies here of your battle system and how everything plays out on the field.
Okay, sure. Well, first, there are no random encounters, so while you're running through the dungeon, you'll see the enemies coming. And one thing before I get into the battles, I will say is that is different about our RPG than some others is that you can fully platform around. You can jump on everything. A lot of RPGs you're kind of glued to the floor, and some of the movement is a little stiff. So for our exploration, we really wanted it to be so you could get everywhere. I mean, every character you can jump on their head, every sign, every tree, every house, you could get all over the maps, which I think is really fun for exploration. But also, so you can see enemies coming, you can jump over them, you can try to avoid them. But if they touch you, it will start the combat sequence, which will take you to the battle board. The battle board is broken up into two halves. Each half is a 3x3 grid. So you can position your three characters on your grid, and the enemies are on their side. You take turns. Each turn you get a free move, so you don't have to waste your turn like positioning your you move two spaces, that's your turn. You move for free because we want the player incentivized to be moving around the board. The closer you are to enemies, the more damage you'll do. Certain skills have different shapes, so you can hit different squares on the grid. You can knock back enemies into traps, set up kind of long-term payoffs in the battle. There are six different characters, but you can only control three. So it's kind of you're customizing which three you're bringing into the combat.
Touching on that a little bit more, give me the customization here. Like you said, there's three characters. How
Yeah.
many different party members are
Yeah.
there? Um, and then how deep is their move pool? Do you need certain combinations to be able to win? Can you just throw anybody on there and you just button mash and hope for the best? How deep is that part?
So yeah, that's a little more involved. There are six total characters, but you can only play as three. So which three you end up using towards the end of the game is kind of your customization. But within each character, you can customize their skills. So say at level 2, you unlock three skills, but you can only pick one. You at any time outside of battle, you can select which of those three you want. So you unlock skills by a tier system, and so at the end you'll have maybe 30 skills to pick from, and you can have 8 per character. So you have six different characters, three on the board, and each character could have 8 different skills out of many skills. So there's quite a bit of customization you can do, different build styles. You can also create interesting tile effects. So in a lot of RPGs, like, you could become poisoned or burned or something. In our game, it's all tied to the tile. So instead of you becoming poisoned, the tile you're standing on is poisoned. Now you can move and not be on that tile, but it's a limited real estate. So an enemy can knock you back, and now you understand.
And One other thing that I want to get into here with the battles is obviously the difficulty curve. Is there like a set difficulty for the game? Is there a variation there? Is there? I know you said there's no random encounters, but
Yeah.
the level of grinding, do you expect to do all these encounters? How does that all work?
So you don't really have to grind by the way it's designed. If you want to be overpowered, you certainly can. The enemies do come back if you keep leaving the area and whatnot. Um, in terms of how difficult it is, there's only one difficulty that we're trying to get just right, obviously. But the thing I liked about RPGs is you could kind of make it easier for yourself by over leveling. You know, the player has some control due to the leveling system. Also, there's a few mechanics that can make the game a little more difficult if you're not good at them. Like we do have the timed hit mechanic, meaning even though it is turn based, when your character goes to take their turn, pushing the button at the right time, you'll get a critical hit. So there is a slight skill based mechanic where if you're really good at that, you'll be dealing extra damage. If you struggle with that, there's other mechanics you could utilize to get through. So we have one difficulty, but there's many different pathways to becoming really powerful.
Is there, when it comes to the balance, do you cater it towards, okay, here's our six characters, right? And these ones make the game easy, these ones make the game pretty average, and these ones, maybe they're not as powerful? Or when it
Right,
comes to
right.
the characters, are they all pretty much on the same level? How does that play into the equation?
Well, we have like by the way you get the characters through the story. So the last two characters they don't get as much time as the four that you kind of go through the early parts with, right? So when I was designing those two characters, my thought was, well, I kind of want to reward people if they are deciding to use like the little guitar character, who's one of the last characters you get. If you do use him, he seems really weak, but there are a lot of really clever things you could do with his skills and setups that can be really useful if you know how to use them. So it's more of a situational use. Like he may not be the obvious choice, but you can do some really interesting things with some of these characters.
Give me a little bit more on the plot here. Now, not to give away the whole story,
Sure,
but
sure.
maybe the first 20 minutes or so of the game,
Yeah.
how does that play out with the story and being introduced to the world that we're in?
Yeah, so you play as Dustin Binsley, who is a squire trying to become a full-fledged garbage knight, and he has been given the great honor of being the king's cupbearer and personal squire for the big feast. Of course, he drank too much curdled milk the night before and overslept. He wakes up late. He's running to the feast. By the time you get there, you do find out that the king has been trash picked. The king is gone. Dustin was late and he's in a bit of trouble and he decides he's going to save the trash picked king. So that's how his quest gets going. And the other thing I'll say is, well, it starts with that. We get into some deeper mysteries, some bigger plot with the world, and eventually you end up going toe to toe with the evil, all-seeing eight ball, who's kind of like a dark prophet figure who can see the future. So he's the villain. He's on the box art.
What's something that you've put in the game that you're especially proud of, or kind of like a little hidden secret or Easter egg that players are going to enjoy?
One thing that was cool was we let our backers design graffiti that we would put all throughout the game. So, if you backed a certain tier, you could put in a little piece of graffiti. So, if being in this world of trash, there's plenty of opportunities to put that all over. I did make this one big concrete wall with tons of our backer graffiti on it. So that's kind of like a neat little Easter egg.
And with this whole process of making a game and taking your story and making it realized here, how has the emotional journey been? Did you always come in strong and like, this is going to be it? This is going to be my story, my game, and, all hands on deck? I'm super motivated, or was there ups and downs here? How, from start to finish, how were you able to make this happen?
Well, it has been a long development, and that has definitely been challenging. Our Kickstarter was supposed to be finished and deliver in 2022. The game was delayed, but that's all right. The backers were super supportive. They knew we were making something that super heartfelt and not a quick cash grab or something like that. So that they gave us the time that we needed to make it the way we wanted to. That gave me the motivation I needed to after work, coming home every day, to be like, all right, let's do this. Um, Keeping in touch with the backers every month was another way to kind of keep motivated. They're really excited, and my own team, the people on Roach Games and our contractors and artists, that seeing them get excited makes me excited, and it becomes kind of a feedback loop. Um, the hardest part, I'd say, was sticking to the original vision for so long. Like, you get all these new ideas as you're in development, and you can't just keep adding stuff. you have you have to kind of at a certain point say, this is what we're making. Let's stick to this and see it through without constantly changing the plan. So that was difficult, but we did manage to do it, and we're finally here.
Now, I know I've seen it pop up in your trailer that we've been playing over and over again, which is I can't stop looking at it. I love the graphics, but the date it keeps popping up. Just give me that out loud and how people can find it and how that's all going to play out.
All right. So yeah, after 6 long years of development, Kingdoms of the Dump will be available on Steam for PC, Mac, and Linux on November 18th.
And another thing I want to touch on from the last question is that you mentioned stuff that didn't make the game that you are interested in. I know we just finished this one. I'm sure obviously you need a break. You're not this big company like, for example, Pokemon, who's just one game comes out, they're already working on the next one. What are some of those things that maybe you scrap that you would be interested in? Do you have plans for next steps here, or maybe making game development a full-time thing for yourself?
Obviously, we would love to keep making games. We have other ideas within this universe already floating around the back of our head that we haven't been able to like really dig into yet as we're finishing out the first one. So we think this world has a lot of potential, and we could see other things happening. But we're also open to new ideas as well. We just really just want to get this out there and see the reception, and hopefully people really enjoy their time in the lands of Phil.
Well, thank you a lot, Roach, for sitting down with me and taking some time, even though we're over Zoom a little
Yeah.
bit away from each other. But I have been seeing this game for a while now on Instagram, and when I finally got this show up and running, I was like, well, I think you'd be fun to have on, and you proved to be just that. And I'm looking forward to getting this game in my hands. And like I said, it's right up my alley. We'll put it to the test though and see how well it stands up. But just by looking at it from everything, I'm impressed and
Well, thanks so
love to
much
get
for
my hands on it.
thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to add about your game that you think I missed or is important just to let anybody know on a closing note?
You can go to kingdomsofthedump.com, follow us on social media, and help us out on launch day.
Well, thank you very much, Roach. And for everyone next time who's tuning in on Bits and Boards, stay tuned. We will have much more variety from game developers just like Roach to our esports and our tabletop. So stay with us.